Hey guys, thanks for checking out our blog. I just want to tell you a little bit about the journey that's led us to this point of this new adventure and missions and ministry and kingdom initiative. So in 2004, when we came out to plant Crosswalk, we really had this romantic idea of what it would look like. You know, we'll build it and they will come and it's going to be easy. Little did we know that church planting is not about planting a service, but about becoming the kind of disciples that multiply. And so loving God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving our neighbor as ourselves, being that bridge of love to a community, the lost and broken around us, joining Jesus on mission to seek the lost and serve the hurting. It was going to require a lot more work in our hard heart and in the hard ground of the community, the people around us. And so it took us a couple of years to figure that out. The Lord was really pruning us and refining us and drawing us closer to Him, closer to each other in our marriage. And in 2005, about a year and a half maybe in to the journey, I was reading Matthew 25 about loving the least of these and those who are hungry, thirsty, sick, needs clothes, need to be visited in prison, that when we love them, we're loving Jesus. And my son came in, who was 5 at the time, and he asked me what I was reading, and I told him, and he ran out of the room, and he came back in with tears and his boots on because it was snowing outside. He said, we got to go, if there are people that are hungry, if there are people that are thirsty, the people that don't have clothes, we got to go help them right now. And so we had some gift certificates that people had given us, and I helped him scratch in his little 5-year-old writing, God loves you, and so do we. And he got his brother, and we jumped in the car because I knew this was a holy moment, that he wasn't educated beyond his obedience, and we needed to follow this thread wherever the Lord was going to take us. And yet, to my shame, I was kind of freaked out. And so every house that we drove down, like, Dad, do they know Jesus? Dad, do they have food? I said, I think they're okay. And finally, about 5 miles later, we dead-ended into this trailer park. And the first trailer I see had on the fence, it said, do I look like a freaking people person? And so my kids couldn't read yet, so they weren't scared, but I was. And so I had slowed down enough that they actually jumped out of the car waving these gift certificates, running up to the door. And before I could stop them, they had knocked on the door, and this big hairy guy named Tim came to the door, and he was like, what do you want? And so my son Josh ran into the trailer saying, God loves you, and so do we, waving this gift certificate, and the big, huge dog they had chased him out. And that's how we came to Edgewood Terrace, and how we came to love a group of broken and hurting people, and eventually started going out there with regular teams and seeing kids come to Christ. It was a powerful thing, and God had weaved a specific family into our lives that we were working with. The mother had to spend some time in prison, and the 3 children lived with us and came to Christ during their time with us, and their mom actually came to Christ during the prison visits in that couple-year period, and it totally transformed how we were viewing ministry. That ministry was really about going to the broken and the marginalized, the hurting, with the gospel. I'm not waiting for them to come to us. And so throughout that journey, we've been bivocational, working in schools for quite a while, and we were looking to offset some of the new kingdom initiatives that God was putting in front of us, as we saw just the level of the need around us, particularly with that family that we were ministering to. We wanted to have a transitional housing when the mom came out of prison, a job for her. And so Common Ground was born in 2011. It's a ministry that helps local churches work together, and a house was donated to us to help people with burnt bridges and couldn't get rent situations, and the thrift store helped provide jobs for people in similar situations. And just the ministries continue to grow, and a unity was beginning to develop in our little small town, multiple churches working together for God's glory. And so I had Common Ground on my screensaver, the logo for Common Ground, and I was at Starbucks, which I'm often there, and a pastor came in, and he's like, what's that? And I started telling him about the Common Ground ministry. He was actually the leader of a mission board or a mission agency called Small World Connections, and this guy, Brent Ressler, he starts multiple thrift stores in the area, and he gives all the funds away for kingdom ministry to help just different initiatives, and they've given over $1 million away in the last several years. And he told me about a partner that they had in Africa, as he heard my heart from Africa growing up there for a few years. And he told me about Juna Amagara, which is an orphan ministry, a kind of grassroots level of like a compassion or world vision. And so we took our first trip in 2013. And while we were there, we were just blown away. Our hearts were captivated. 10 of us from our little church were forever changed. And I was exposed specifically to a program called Abide there, that was a residential discipleship program that the orphans, after they came out of high school, they would train them up and build them up as they went into university as missionaries. And so coming home, I had this passion to apply that here at home, and through another video you can watch elsewhere under the What is Abide page. You can tell the story about hear the story about how that developed. And a new church plant came out at a community called Goofy Ridge. And through that, the story kind of started sharing with other pastors about what it would look like to, have residential discipleship programs going on. And we continue to take trips to Africa. On our latest one, we were exposed to a deeper level of brokenness than we'd ever thought of through street kids in Kampala, and also refugees, and the brokenness that comes from all the violence and the cyclical, almost genocides that are happening in Sudan, Rwanda, Burundi, and Congo, refugees by the tens of thousands flooding into Uganda. And our director of operations through the Amagara Ministry just finished his PhD in psychology and done his dissertation work on the effects of PTSD on these refugees, particularly the women and the children have just suffered horrific abuse. And one of our team members was just captivated with the worldwide refugee problem anyway, and connected really with that issue when we were visiting these refugee camps. And through that, we were able to start a new nonprofit with this Ugandan brother called Hope Partners, and you can check out that on other parts of our site. Just amazing, a way to minister to these women and children and provide them dignity through microenterprise efforts, and love, and trauma therapy and the gospel, and help them to be revitalized and kind of engaged in life after these horrific experiences that they've had. And so all of this kind of led me to talk to some area pastors and get involved in what's called the One Story Network, which is a new church plant network that's just getting off the ground, that will raise up church planters who are called to start new churches in residential formats, where they come in for 18 months, and we would train them, expose them to areas like the Ridge, expose them to needs around the world like Juna Magara and Hope Partners with refugees and orphans, and expose them to different ministry contexts, small town, large town, and cities, and then launch them out all over the world. And we have several church planters we're already working with. So I was involved in doing all these things, had reduced our salary from the church to fund some of them, and it was teaching full time, and was just running on fumes this 2016-17 school year. And the Lord really called us to realize that He had the funds for this vision, and that time was really the limiting factor. Our energy, I needed to be engaged fully in my gift set of ministry, which through this season has really been defined as raising up and releasing pioneers and partnerships for the kingdom, a mobilizer, a catalyst to help new things start. We've always functioned at Crosswalk. We don't exist as a church for you to help us with our vision, but we want to realize that according to Ephesians 4, the leaders of the church are called to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. What is God calling you to do? How can we help you? And so as we've started these different nonprofits, I have all these initiatives going and didn't have the energy to lead them well, and to put my full focus there, and family and the church, everything was struggling. And so Brent Ressler came back in, the leader of Small World Connections, at another Starbucks meeting, and he challenged me to look at what we're already doing in Africa and partner with them and take on a new platform called the Go Team Africa, and that's a coaching position, a mobilizing ministry for churches that want to get involved in orphan ministry, refugee ministry, evangelistic discipleship ministry in the continent of Africa. And so this just the last couple of months, we've been raising funds to replace the the income from the teaching job, to be able to have the energy and the space and the margins financially and time-wise to fully engage in these different ministries. And so as of right now, as the shooting of this video, we are 85% funded, and the Lord's just affirmed over and over again through one after another Spirit-led kind of conversation that He is putting together teams and partners to help us to run after these things that He's laid out before us. So thank you for your interest in supporting us. Thank you for your partnership in the ministry. This is all for King Jesus, all for His glory. You know, what we receive is never meant to stop with us, but to spread through us. And the church is not the end. It's the means to demonstrate the kingdom to the community. And God said the gospel of the kingdom will be preached as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. And we can work together to see the Great Commission to be a completed task. We want to make Jesus' last words in the Great Commission to make disciples to be our first priority, and it's going to take partnership. So thank you for joining the team and running after this together. God bless.